implementation of core HR, they need to be using core HR as well as the system of record. So that's a very key distinction. We do not support what is being known previously as kind of a coexistence model, right? We do not support that from a recruiting standpoint, and therefore it cannot be deployed on a standalone basis.
Daniel, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Do we plan, it's not going to be offered with talent management cloud, just that standalone ever. It still has to have core HR, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Core HR is the prerequisite, right?
Okay.
Anything else is optional, right? Once you have core HR, you can deploy recruiting, you can deploy talent, you have no other dependencies, but core HR is the prerequisite. That's right.
Yeah, so related to that, does, because these questions will come up, I'm an Oracle employee as well, so does core HR have to be fully implemented or just some org structure and basic person profile? Or do they really need to be using core HR?
No, so what we are saying is it needs to be fully implemented. You need to be using core HR as your system of record, right? It's not purely to set up work structures and then use recruiting.
Thank you.
Right. I did do it in case the question is, we are right now in the process of implementing, so what do? We can go live at the same time. As long as
Sure.
core HR is live, we can also go live.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have situation with in fact, the first go live customer is going to do that, right? They are starting fresh. They're going to implement core HR, and they're also going live with recruiting. So that's possible, right? You can do it at the same time. So what do I mean by it's a common architecture? So the reason we did this, one of the strong reasons for doing this is we have heard feedback from customers that one of the key things that is a bottleneck for them is when they are decoupled systems, there is a lot of time spent in integrating two different systems, having to duplicate work, and it kind of slows down the pace at which they can make things happen. Similarly for us, right, from a technical standpoint, this is a no-brainer for us. Now that we are all part of the same family, it makes sense for us to utilize the same architecture from HCM Cloud to build a new product. Technically, it makes sense, but I think it also makes sense for customers. Right? For customers, if you look at it, they have simplified administration, just single way of managing things. They have improved data management tools. So if you look at, we'll talk about data management tools on day 2 tomorrow, and we'll talk about how you can use the same set of tools that you use for HCM. HDL and HCM extract, all of those will be available for recruiting as well, and then a consistent user experience. So those are kind of the 3 core benefits. There is also another kind of secondary benefit, right? But that's equally important. If you look at the pace at which we're able to deliver features, and you see that when I talk about roadmaps, we're able to deliver features at a much more rapid clip than we have done in the past, right? If you look at OTAC and compare it with the pace at which we're going to deliver features on ORC, there's a significant benefit because a lot of the platforming efforts are now gone. Right? We don't have to spend time in pre-platforming instead of investing in infrastructure needs. We can just focus on the key features. So this is a significant reason for why we are doing this. But it's more than just re-platforming. If we had just done that, let's say we just wanted to sort of implement recruiting on a new platform, we could have done that. That would have been an easy thing for us to do. All we had to do was look at Taleo, industry-leading product, take the features, and build it on top of a new platform. But we chose not to do that. This was a conscious decision we made 3 years back. And we said, you know what, let's take a fresh look and see, how would we build it if we have to start with a clean slate. This is not to say we just abandoned everything we did in Taleo and just started from a clean slate. We took the best of what is there in Taleo, right? We have years of experience. We didn't want to sort of waste that. So we took that, but we also built on top of it. So these are the 3 design principles, key design principles that you'll see. Something wrong with the build, I guess. The three design principles that we focused on was, first one was being talent aware, second one is data driven, and the third one is about being candidate centric. So what do they mean? So from the first one, being talent aware, now that we are part of a single platform, not only do we have access to just the recruiting data, we also have access to all the other data, right, that's captured in the talent management system, the HR system. So we have a unified view of the talent, and we're able to provide that to customers. And using that, we are able to sort of also help the talent, for example, internal employees to better leverage the information that's available, to recommend jobs to them, to be able to match them to opportunities, and sort of use information that we have about them in other systems like career development and career planning, use that to sort of better engage internal talent. And similarly for the organizations, provide a unified view of the talent, their skills and their capabilities, and a unified way to search for talent. The second pillar is around the data-driven. So data, of course, as all of you know, it's kind of the new gold in this economy. So now that we are able to look at the data that we have not only in recruiting but also in other modules, we can use that to adapt our systems, if you will. For example, we're able to personalize the candidate site based on behavioral data that we have about the candidate, right? Things that they do on the site, the profile data that we collect about the candidate. So we're able to use that to personalize their experience. In another use case, we are able to use the data to match candidates to jobs. So we use some cutting-edge machine learning techniques to take a candidate's profile and match them to jobs, and show them to recruiters who are looking to find new candidates for a job requisition they might be looking to fill. And the third design principle here is really around making the products candidate-centric. So if you look at traditional recruiting systems, it's always been requisition-centric, right? It's all about, hey, I opened a requisition, and now I post it, and then voila, candidates apply, and I'm looking to fill that requisition, right? So that's been the mindset really of not only companies, but I would argue even products. So with this product, we are basically saying, let's make the candidate the center of the universe, right? It's all about the candidate, and you will see how we are able to sort of provide newer tools that allow you to engage candidates at scale, nurture candidates, and really provide a consumer-like experience to candidates. So in terms of, I touched upon a few of these points earlier, right? So in terms of, if you look at examples where we use these principles of talent awareness, we are allowing internal candidates to simply use their talent profile to apply to jobs, right? If you have your talent profile and you have it updated, or even if you don't have it updated, right, you can just go in, look for an opportunity, select that job, and apply to the job just using your talent profile. Okay, so it simplifies the experience for the internal candidates. And similarly, we are able to use the information about an internal candidate and recommend jobs to them, roles to them based on their career preferences. So these are all different ways in which we can use the information we have about the existing talent and enhance the experience of the recruiting product. Here are a couple of other examples when you look at sort of the data-driven aspect of the product. The first one is using behavioral targeting. So one of the modules that we integrate with is this. So the way this module works is it looks at this module recommends content to the candidate who's exploring jobs on the site. So the nice thing about this is you're able to target these candidates even if you don't know anything about them, even if it's the first time that they're coming to the site, because this is distributed across the web. They're able to use that information about the candidate based on things that they do on other sites, and sort of make some recommendations to the candidate on this site. And then going forward, we'll also be able to incorporate more advanced behavior that not only incorporates the generic behavior that they have on other sites off-site, but also looking at things they do within the site in terms of job searches that they do, what did they click on, did they click on a video, did they watch a particular video, things like that, right? Using that to personalize the experience. And then the second example is really about intelligent matching. So in this case, imagine a recruiter has opened a job and they don't have that many applications for the job. So they get these recommendations which say, hey, we've looked at your internal database, and here are some candidates that you might want to look at. which are good matches for the requisitions. The last leg is the thing about being candidate-centric. So a couple of vignettes here. One is really talking about email marketing campaigns, being able to create recruiting specific campaigns. In this case, it's an email marketing campaign where you're able to send out mass emails to a population for a specific purpose. It could be to get them to attend an event. It could be to getting them to apply to a job, or in some cases it could be to your employee population, wanting them to refer candidates to a job. So those are the kinds of campaigns we support. And the idea really is, this is a mechanism for you to programmatically engage candidates at scale. And then there's even a higher level concept called initiatives, where we're able to take what are usually disparate things within your recruiting system, things like campaigns, requisitions, candidate pools. Normally, these are decoupled systems, but you're able to bring them together into something called an initiative, right? An example of an initiative would be, imagine you're opening a brand new site, okay, in some location, and you need to hire the site director, a couple of project managers, so everything that you need to sort of get that site operational, right? A new site operational. So what you would do is you could create campaigns, you could create candidate pools, you could create requisitions, but you could bundle them all under this one initiative and track them easily. So you understand, how well you're doing on that particular initiative. How many openings do you have? How many have you hired? How is your campaign doing? Do you need to take any corrective action, and so on. So that's just covering sort of the design principles, right? Giving you a perspective of how we thought about the product. What were sort of the core principles we kept in mind as we built out features in the product. But going beyond that, and this talks to our roadmap, right? How we are thinking of the future, not just about what we have today. So we want to go beyond what has been the traditional definition of a recruiting system, right? For a long time we have been boxed into an ATS provider. Oh, you're an applicant tracking system, but we use other technologies for meeting needs like recruitment marketing or sourcing or things, or engagement, candidate engagement. So we want to what we want to do with the new product is we want to take a fresh look at it and say, you know what, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to eliminate all the fragmented technologies that exist with customers and bring them all together with a single unified solution. And that's kind of the investment we are making. I'm not saying we are there today, right? But that's the investment we are making, and you'll see that, with the breadth of features that we have, that's kind of our direction. So in terms of feature set, and I'll talk about each of these in great depth, right? Starting right after this, Suresh will kick us off by talking about candidate experience. We'll go through each of these modules and talk about all of the features that are there, and it's going to take us a good chunk of the next 3 days. So we have already, right, this is V1 of our product, but if you look at the breadth of our product offering, we have a compelling candidate experience that includes a choice of different visual templates. It's fully mobile responsive. It gets rid of typical bottlenecks that exist in candidate experiences. I think David talked about us not needing an account login anymore. This is one of the number one challenges we face with Taleo, right? Every customer that we had, they had issues with how the login process would work for a candidate applying to a job, where you had to create an account first, and then you had to create a username, password, then log in, and things like that. So we have sort of taken a fresh look at that and sort of come up with an approach that does not meet that. We have sourcing capabilities already. We have, like I said, we have campaigns, pools, unified talent search, and many more to come. And then in terms of recruiting, of course, recruiting still, when I say recruiting, I mean the core sort of what would have been called as the applicant tracking system capabilities. We have not forgotten that. That's still front and center for the product. And finally, across the product, right, this is across all the modules, you'll see many things that point to the suite integration or the suite experience. It's integrated with workforce planning. It's integrated with org charts. It obviously uses all of the work structures that exist in core HR. Right? You don't need to redefine the work structures in recruiting. It's the exact same work structures, the business units, the departments, the jobs, the grade, the organizations that you define in core HR is what is used in recruiting. And then going forward, there will be many more touch points, right? Touch points with learning, touch points with succession planning, and with career development. Those are, again, things that will come down in the roadmap. And finally, since this is a new product, we have been able to take advantage of features that exist in the broader Oracle ecosystem, I should say. For those of you who have probably seen the announcement that came in late last year, we announced a new bot platform, right? An ability for you to create bots, chatbots that use AI and conversational UI. So we have incorporated some of that into the candidate experience. We are using, like I said earlier, we are using some very advanced machine learning techniques for matching candidates to jobs and jobs to candidates. So those are some capabilities we are able to bring forth in recruiting. Let me pause here and see if there are any questions. The next thing I'm going to do is get into sort of the end-to-end demo. And when I say end-to-end demo, what I'm going to do is do a real fly-through of all the capabilities, things that you're going to, it's a preview of what you're going to see over the next 2 days. Yeah.
Security rules also integrated.
Exactly. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Absolutely. We didn't create a new security model. It's exactly the same security model that you're familiar with from Fusion HCM is used here. So it's the same. We have, of course, we'll have our own set of privileges, like functional privileges that we are defined for recruiting. You have the capability to define data roles, right, using the same constructs that exist in HCM. You can do that in recruiting as well. And I'll explain that as I go into the details of each of the modules. I'll talk about how we have secured various objects.
Question on the previous slide. I had a customer challenge me, and it just caught me off guard. He said, "What do you mean by accessible?" And I laughed, and I was thinking, I'm thinking byway compliance, I'm thinking the typical stuff. What are you guys saying there with accessible, other than it's mobile accessible, mobile enabled?
No, that means a very specific term. So mobile responsive, that's sure. Accessible is from the accessibility standpoint, right? So WCAG 2.0, I guess.
All that screen screen
yes,
all that
yes,
stuff. Okay,
exactly.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other term I was going to ask you, you said something about the, when I was reading the browser, the behavior targeting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you call it Agnes or Adnis?
Adnis, yeah. Adnis is a company that Oracle acquired, I don't know, 2 years ago. ADD, THIS, yeah.
And the customer asked me, is that optional? And I said, yes,
Yes.
you don't have to configure that.
Yes,
So
it's optional.
Absolutely,
Yeah, it's optional.
makes sense to me, but-
Yeah. Many of the features are optional, right? All configurable. I think these are just capabilities we offer. The same thing goes for chatbot. The same thing goes for the matching. Like if you don't like it, if you think it doesn't meet your needs, don't use it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me switch over to the demo. So I'll start with the candidate experience side, which is, okay, this is a problem. Is this okay for everyone? Or should I make it full screen? No, not Zoom. I think it's more for this.
We're only seeing.
Okay, so you're only seeing the one screen. Okay, good. So in terms of the candidate experience, right, out of the box, we ship with 2 design templates. And again, Suresh will go into more depth over here, right? The idea really is these design templates are the ones that define the look and feel. It defines how the various visual elements that you see here, for example, the jobs, the search box, the header, the footer, how do they show on a page, right? So that's controlled by what we call as a visual template. And then on top of it, you can go and configure the visual template. So you can theme it, right? You can style it, you can change the colors, you can change the font family that you use, things like that. But these 2 visual templates give you very distinctive experiences. This one we call as the modern template. It has a rich image. There's an image that you can use as the background. It uses tiles as opposed to traditional list views. There is it allows for a split panel view where you can look at cards and a detail in the same screen. And then we also have what we call as the classic view, which shows you kind of the classic view of jobs in a list format, and then you turn down into a particular list item to look at the full detail. So those are the 2 templates. I'm showing you one of those. Again, it has what I would say is from a functional standpoint. What we provide is an ability for a candidate to search and apply for jobs. We'll see that. And then once you find a job that you like, you can go in and apply for the job. I'm going to cover both of those. So this site, you can browse all jobs, or you can search for jobs just using like a keyword, and it has auto suggest. It auto suggests based on the job titles, and you can also search for other keywords that exist within the. You can also do a general search based on keywords that exist within the job description itself. For example, if you search for leadership, it would show any job that has the term leadership in it. The things that you would normally expect. We support location search. So let's see, this is in Chicago, United States. So as you see from the drop down, when you look for location search, it can use the location that the browser pre-fills if the user so wishes to do so. And then we have filters, which is the list of facets. So in terms of, again, I'll let Suresh cover the details in terms of what is covered, so I'll skip that for now. So that's kind of the basic overview, right? You can search for jobs, you can either use keyword search, use facets, and then drill down and find a job. Once you've found a job, like I said, this is the modern view where you're able to look at a list of jobs at the left, but you can browse for jobs by simply clicking on the tiles. We support multimedia content, where you can have videos or images embedded within the job, and you can have job description, job summary. You can embed details about the team, about the company. So we have dedicated sections for those. So as you can see over here, there is a section for about us, which is typically where you would put a company description, and then about the team is specific to the team. These are like the container elements, if you will, within the job that you can control through what you define in the job requisition. And then once let's say the candidate looks at the job and decides this is the right job, they can go in and apply to the job. So this part is quite important. David talked about it. I don't think it quite took 2 hours. The last time we talked it, I think it was less than that. But yes, we did have quite a bit of discussion. I'm sure we're going to have that discussion in a short while. So we thought about it, right? So there were a couple of options here. So I'll give you like a little bit of history behind this. The first thing we wanted to do is we basically said, hey, let's optimize this for the first-time user. There are quite a few first-time users who come in, you want to apply to a job, and you don't want to sort of go in and create an account and do all of that. You just want to go and apply. So we wanted to optimize for that. So we said, hey, so the first thing is we have this thing that says you do not need to have an account. You can just use your email address to get started. We do a couple of things when you enter your email address. So let me enter my email address here. Okay. So in this case, I entered some email address. This is a demo system. They don't know anything about that. But this system does not have that particular email address in the database. So then what the system decides is, okay, this is a brand new candidate. I'm going to let this candidate through, okay, based just on the email handle. And then I can go in and apply to the job completely. So let me do that here. And then I'll come back and say what happens for an existing user. There are a few options. Again, this is all, lots of things are configurable. I won't go into the details of how you configure them right now. But the point is, this apply flow itself is configurable. You can have different options here. You can import from Indeed, LinkedIn, use your resume and parse your resume. All of those options are supported. In this case, I'm going to use LinkedIn to parse in my data. And again, just for demo purposes, the way we set up this flow is we basically put in all possible blocks, so you have a idea of what is possible. So in this case, it says profile successfully imported, and it got in all the information it could possibly get from the LinkedIn profile, right? And there's one section called the job application questions. This is like a pre-screening questions. Of course, we are not able to get this information from LinkedIn because it doesn't exist. So if it is being configured in such a way, in this case, it's configured so that all of the responses are required. So, or at least some of the responses are required. So you got to go in and fill those. Okay. And then you'll see that all of the information is parsed in. There is also a block here. If you want to get them to opt in to receive marketing communications, you can deploy that block. Like I said, everything here is pretty much configurable. You can take out things that don't make sense and submit it. So once you submit it, what happens on the back end, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This application goes through. All of the information is transferred over to the recruiting system. We record this job application, but we kind of quarantine this job application, if you will. Right? We basically say this job application, we received this job application, but it's unverified. What we mean by unverified is we don't know if this person really owns that email address, right? They just said they entered an email address, right, and they applied, but it's not been verified. Then we send them an email asking them to confirm that they indeed applied to this job using that email address. So once they confirm that, then we kind of move this to a valid application. Saying, okay, this is now a confirmed job application. The recruiter can take action on that. Can take action on the job application. That's the first flow, right? New candidate applying to a job. Okay. There is also a second one, which is an existing candidate, because this has come up. In fact, surprisingly, it came up during one of the implementations. What about an existing candidate? How will they be able to use the profile that they have previously entered? So in that case, so imagine I've already applied using this email address, my Oracle email address, karthikodanraman@oracle.com. So if you come back a week from now, 6 months from now, whatever it is, right, and I apply using the same email address, the system will detect that, hey, you already applied using this email address. We have sent you an email to this email address. Please use that to complete your application, so we can, you can tailor the message however you want to. Use that email to, complete your application, so we can use the profile data. So they can just go to that email address, click on that email. It's a secure URL. Once they click on it, they'll come back to the job application site where all of the data will be pre-filled from the last apply, and they can complete the application. At this point, of course, they can choose to update the profile, They can fill out the job application questions. If there are new job application questions, all of that they can do on the second pass. So that's how the job application process works.
So, am I hearing you correctly that if they've already created a profile and they're applying for a second vacancy, they will then receive another email? Or did I understand that incorrectly?
Second
No, so let me make sure I hear it correctly.
Session or?
Yeah, that's what. Okay. That's what I wanted to make sure I understood. So the concept behind it is the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that this is not somebody just trying to spam, right? You know.
Right.
So the first time it's pretty locked down, right? The first time when you try to apply, you're allowed to apply to one job, right? And then we send you this email asking you to verify, and you verify. That's how that works. So the use case I'm talking about is really about a legitimate candidate coming back for a second time, like I said, maybe a week from now, 6 months from now, and when they apply to the job, then they are sent a link asking them to use that link to apply to a job. When they use that link to apply to a job, they come back to the candidate experience site, where now they are sort of, I'm going to use this term with quotes, authenticated as that person with that email address, so they can complete the job application. In that session, they are free to apply to as many jobs as they want. They will not be sent back another email, right? So in that session, when they're applying to jobs, they can apply to 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, how many ever jobs, as long as their browser session is open.
What about the first session? When they find a new candidate, they apply to that one job, they click that email, they come back, and they send them over.
Right. So the first session, so the first one is special. Like I said, I think this for the first one, we made the decision to lock it down. You're only restricted to 1 apply for the first session. But we've already received feedback from some of the customers that they would like to open it up to maybe more than 1, maybe not unlimited, but maybe a handful of applications. So we are looking at that.
Karthik, I just want to understand how it's talking to OIM or anywhere else where we can store the email ID, the work email ID, which goes down from the same cloud. So, from an authentication perspective, the first time, there are 2 cases here. Use cases, the first time is the person like you provides a home email, right, a personal email. And how does it go and hit the backend, OIM or other applications? And
okay, so if I can just stop you for like I said, we're going to get into more depth in this. So the goal of this session is really to give you a fly through of everything. So I don't want to get too deep right away, right? So we go into that. The next session is really almost like a 2-hour session dedicated to candidate experience. So we'll do a deep dive then. So if you can hold your questions, my goal really is to walk you through the end-to-end capabilities. Let me do that, and then we'll come back to your question.
Go back to this question about
Yeah.
about locking down, right? So say if a candidate, new candidate,
Mhm.
and they can verify the email, and they,
Yeah.
Once they do that.
Once they do that, they can apply. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so while I'm talking about candidate experience, let me quickly also show you. Another thing that is quite different here in Oracle recruiting as opposed to OTAC is how we have differentiated the experience for internal candidates and external candidates. I use the term internal candidates, and sometimes I might use the term employees or workers. I'm kind of using the term in a kind of loose way. So let me define for this audience, right, what I mean by internal candidates. For us, internal candidates means if you're an employee or a contingent worker, then the experience that we give for you is this one that I'm going to demo right now. Right? We call that the internal candidate experience. So we again made a deliberate decision, and we said, hey, now that we are part of one suite, why not provide an experience that's similar to how all the other self-service experiences work? Okay, just the way you would manage your do your talent or your career development or anything else, right? So you would kind of interact with the recruiting system the same way. And with that decision, we are also able to create more differentiated experiences with this site. Right? There are, again, this is also talking a little bit about the roadmap, but the point is this decision helps us do that. In terms of capabilities, you will see it's very similar. So the basic capabilities in terms of how can you search for jobs, how do you apply to jobs, all of the core capabilities are the same. There's no difference. There are more functions, if you will, that are available to the workers, simply because there are things that make sense here that don't make sense for the external candidates. A good example is referrals. When we thought about referrals, we decided to only provide referral capabilities for the internal candidate experience. Right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to allow some random external person to refer someone else to the job. So we didn't do that. The UI is different, and another thing for those of you who are probably keeping tabs, HCM is currently going through this massive UI exercise where we are sort of redesigning all our screens. This is 18A. This is 18A. Things will be different with 18B and with 18C. So I'm not going to talk about the UI per se. I'll simply say this UI is anyway going to be different from the external one, and then it will evolve along with the rest of the HCM suite. Capabilities, exactly the same thing. You can search for jobs, you can do keyword search, you can do faceted search, you can drill down into the job, all of these things that you saw earlier. So I'll click on the same job so you can look at it. They still exist, right? Just rendered differently. You still have the videos, you still have the images, all of the job requirements. But there is a little more. If you look at it, we're able to, again, these are decisions we made, right? We show more information to the internal candidates. In this example, we are showing the internal candidate who the hiring manager is, who the recruiter is, simply because it makes more sense, right? They can directly contact the person, they can call them up, they can send them an email. And then, like I said, in terms of the actions they can do, they can, in addition to just applying to the job, they can also refer people to the job, right? They can say, hey, I want to refer someone from outside, I can refer an existing employee. And again, simple things, but it's sort of, in some sense, very intuitive, but nevertheless, these are the things we're able to do now that we are part of a single suite, right? When you say refer an employee, well, poorly over here. When you say refer an employee, rather than asking them to enter an email address or a name, it's just a drop-down list where they can search for the employee, find the employee, and refer them directly. And once they select an employee, they'll be asked to say, hey, what is the message you want to send to the candidate? You can customize this message. And there is an optional thing which is called endorsement, where you can say, not only do I want to refer this candidate, I also want to endorse the candidate. Right? This is a new thing that we added to the referral, a new dimension that we added to referrals. The endorsement is just a stronger signal. And you may have, sometimes you refer a person, you may just know them from maybe not so well, so you just refer them. Sometimes you work with that person, so you can strongly endorse them for a particular role, and you say why they are a really great fit for this job. And we build the endorsements in a very flexible way, so it doesn't have to be always tied to a referral. For example, let's say who's this person? Conrad referred Robert to this job, and then a week later, I decide to refer Robert to the job. I can't because Robert was already referred, but I can still endorse Robert. I can say, you know what, that's fine if I can't refer Robert. I still want to endorse him because I think Robert is a great candidate. I want to make sure he gets into this company. Now the apply. very similar in terms of the apply process itself. Everything that you can do for the external candidate, you're able to set up for the internal candidate as well. What I mean by that is the same blogs, right? The information that you're capturing about the external candidate, you can do that for the internal candidate, right? You can do like a resume type information, like the work history, education, licenses, ask them pre-screening questions. All of that you can do. The only difference is most of these are pre-filled, right? Because this is information that's coming from the talent profile. If they've already filled that in, this is automatically filled. They can update it if they want to, and simply apply to the job. And that's a. It's the same thing.
So
It's the same thing through this. Yeah.
So is it truly updating their talent
Yes.
profiles? That goes your workflow then to approve? So.
Yeah. Yeah. So that comes up, and again, that comes up a lot. So that's a tricky one, right? If there is a particular section that needs approval, kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense to. We haven't quite figured out how that would interact with this. So the choice we made is for those that require approval, they don't really show up in the recruiting block, right? Because it gets very hairy once you get approval in, right? Because you may not want somebody to know that you're applying to a job, and then if you then apply to the job and then goes into somebody, I don't even know how the approval rules are set up. Maybe it goes to your manager. It's tricky. But does it happen? I mean, the blocks that we are talking about, right, are at least we basically thought it's things that may not require approval, like we're talking about previous history, licenses, languages, work preferences, degrees.
The problem is when I got feedback from a customer and they said, well, what if our talent profile doesn't have all that information?
Yeah.
And then I said, well, you can add it here. And then the next step is,
Yeah.
does it update the talent profile? And I'm like,
It is the same
you
thing.
wouldn't want the end user updating their own talent profile for work history.
Is
That
it?
would- you know, I mean, it gets to be that fine line of who's updating the data. HR people with broken workflow, or is the end user putting it in and it's not being validated? So it's right. So it's that balancing
Yeah.
of data. Data's right.
Or even like education credentials, do an MBA, it's not that, it's not verified.
Yeah, that I've heard, but again, that I've heard in some countries.
Practically speaking, if I'm a job seeker in an organization, I wouldn't wait until the last minute to update my profile, right? I know I'm going to look out of my current team. It's just not that overnight I can switch from this team to a different team. So what I would do is, as a job seeker, I will update my profile whenever my credentials are updated, and then I'll make sure I'm ready for the next job, and then apply. It's not. I definitely appreciate all the questions at the same time what customers will be asking for it. But if you practically think it's a different situation.
It's just how to answer those questions. You're like, you go, okay, well, who is updating their talent profile? Is employees entering their talent profile in the job they're applying for? That's where it gets to be.
But when they're applying, all they should be updating is their work history or education if they've got a new degree or something, not their other information that you already have.
That's where we're saying, well, we don't have the talent profiles updated with all that information. So it's just the trickery.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they can simply add an attachment as well. That's the other option. Most people do that anyway, right? You just attach your resume, and that becomes your. This is information that you supply for recruiting. So what I'm going to do next is talk about sort of the core backend functionalities. Now that we have applied to the job, imagine that that I applied to the job. I didn't actually go through it, but if I had applied to the job from the external candidate experience for this job, the HR service desk operator. That's okay. Let me just do this. Okay. This is the requisition completely filled in. This is already created, it's posted. Actually, I'll come back to this. Let me walk through the job application and I'll come back to the requisition. So as you can see, this is the total set of job applications that we have received. There are 5 job applications in total. 4 of them are active. These are just jump off points. You don't need to even do this. This is just a convenience. If you happen to land in the requisition, we have an area from where we give you some, almost like a scoreboard. We tell you, what are the job applications that you have and some metrics in terms of how many are active. And that's where the unconfirmed is. We talked about the unconfirmed or unverified job application. If somebody applied but they didn't actually verify their email address, we would have a counter for that. And then also show you how many are hired. There's also a concept of, this is a proprietary term like we are using called prospects. It means something very special. It might mean very different things for the customer. It might mean very different things for you. We use this term called prospects, which is really a way of saying if you match candidates to a job or if you refer somebody to a job, they are not considered as full job applications. Instead, we just have a linkage between that candidate and the requisition. And then they are sent an invite asking them to apply. Once they apply, we consider them as job applications. So let me go into the job application itself again. Quick. This will be a list of job applications. Don't focus so much on the UI. A lot of these will change. You can look at the job applications. You have the list view, the card view. You can filter candidates. There's a bunch of filters that we ship out of the box. Things that are there by default, things that end user can add. All of these are configurable. You can choose to make some of these enabled by default. All of the configurable options that are typically available in HCM modules are available here as well. Then once you can drill down into the job application. And this is basically where you would be able to look at all of the information that was provided by the candidate. So if you look at, this is kind of the flip side of the candidate experience side. We saw all of the information they provided. It's available here. The previous employment, all of the talent profile blocks I talked about, right? Previous employment, language, licenses, work requirements, and if they have any endorsements, if they've been referred, that information will be captured here as well. We also show you if they're being considered in other requisitions, if they are actively being managed in other candidate pools. All of that information is shown on this tab. You can look at attachments. You can look at this particular candidate. There were no attachments. This is where you would see resume, cover letter, things like that. This is also something new that we added in recruiting called interactions. Yes, questions?
I know you showed us that the candidate completes pre-screening questions. Does it have the ability to use those screening questions for evaluating requirements and things like that? So that
Yeah, good question. So there are 2 kinds of questions that you can deploy on an application. So one is one flavor is the disqualifying questions, right? The knockout questions. So those if you set them up, you can use those to automatically disposition the candidate. So you can do that. The second set are what are the more traditional pre-screening questions, which are just informational or for business reasons. So that way, it's more right now. It's just to capture the information. You're not able to use that information to score or to evaluate the candidate per se. But that's something that again we have heard from customers already. Yeah.
So we're talking about like the ACE candidate.
Yeah.
Questions are there, scoring.
We don't have the scoring yet. Yeah, we don't have the scoring yet. I mean, to be honest, the foundation is already there. We're using the same thing for disqualifying. We just did not implement it for the pre-screening. So it's just doing it is not that hard. But yes, it's not available right now.
but the disqualifications do the knockout.
Yes, automatically.
And they also do the flagging, like those stuff. If you don't want to knock them out, just throw a flag. To be verified.
You can do that. It's a configuration. We'll get into the details when I cover that module. Remind me if you can ask me the question again, I'll tell you how to do it. But the answer is yes. The concept of interactions is, again, very generic module that we built. This is really to track the various activities that recruiter or other people in the system have in the system, right? There are two flavors here, manual interactions. For example, hey, I'm a recruiter, I pick up the phone, I talk to the candidate, I can log that as an activity or an interaction here. There are also automatic interactions that are logged by the system when email gets sent out from the system. When you send out an email through this, I'll show you that. Then it logs that as an activity saying, hey, an email was sent out, this was the email that was sent out, and this is the type of interaction that you had with the candidate. So it's kind of both of them are captured and presented in the same view. Yes, question?
Yeah, what happens when they respond to those emails? What happens to when they respond to the emails? Do they get logged into the system?
The candidate responds to an interaction, does ORC capture that?
No, it's just one way at this point. Thank you. So the question was, do we have the ability to do two-way interactions, right? The candidates responding to emails, and are we tracking the full thread? So we don't have that capability right now. And then, if you have responses to the job application questions, both the DQs and the pre-screening questions are presented in this form. So you can look at all of that information, and you can move them through, the recruiter can move them through the selection process. Again, this is all configurable. We'll go into great details in terms of how to set this up. But imagine a candidate selection process has been configured for this particular requisition. Then they would be able to sort of move them through the process and record that.
Can you have multiple candidate selection workflows?
I'm sorry?
Can you have multiple candidate selection workflows?
Yeah, the question is, can you have multiple selection processes? Yes, you can. So there's a bunch of actions. I won't go through all of these, but the broad thing you can do is you can move them through a selection process. If you think they're a good fit for a different job requisition, you can do that. You can take an action like that. You can add them to a specific candidate pool so you can keep them warm. You can engage them for maybe a different opportunity down the line. You can collect feedback from people who have talked to them. That's a very specific business flow called interview feedback. So you can do that from here. Or finally, if you think this is the right person for you, you can go ahead and create a job offer for the candidate. So those are all the actions you can take.
Back to that question of multiple selection workflows. Is that available in this version that's coming out for general availability?
Multiple selection process is available from 18p.
18B.
That's May release. When is the May release? Yeah.
I have a question about the May release.
Yeah, it's available in that release.
Yeah, just a quick question about the May release. Is it still restricted to just one background check partner, or have you guys opened that up yet? Sorry.
It's not very audible there.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. About the May release, is it still restricted to just one background check partner?
Okay, so the question is about the background check by partners. So we're going to talk, I think we have dedicated sessions for talking about the partner strategy. So I want to be very clear, right? So the partner strategy, the way it's working is, yes, we are going to market with one vendor because we don't want to go to market with 0 vendors, so we selected one, right? But it's completely customer driven. What I mean by that, if you have a customer that is going live, let's say in December, okay? And they have a different background check partner that they're working with. They can engage with us right away, right? Or rather, the background check partner should engage with us right away to get on the program. So it's a very easy self-service model that we have, where partners can come in. We will provide them the integration documents. From a program perspective, we have determined that it's a 10-week long from start to finish. When I say start to finish, I mean literally starting the engagement with Oracle to getting on the Oracle marketplace and making it available to customers. So it's really not that long if you think about it. 10 weeks to get there. So it's really up to the the customer and the background check vendor to engage with us and get on the program.
Oh, okay, is that vendor hiring or?
The one that we are going,
Yes.
So we will have HireRight as the first partner. In fact, they are already available.
Okay, great, I'll save your walk. One more question about, on the Taleo side, you know, there's restrictions with attachments. I think it's like 2 megabytes or something like that.
Mhm.
Are the same restrictions, do they apply, now that we're kind of within core? Probably not, right?
No. We determined last time it was 1 gig, right?
Yeah.
Was it?
I think,
Some ridiculous number.
right, it's pretty huge.
Oh, it's big, yeah, because that was always a major, issue on the Taleo side, is that when candidates attach, you know, documents, they can't attach documents larger than certain sizes.
No, we don't have any such limits.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so again, the purpose of this one is really to give you the end-to-end demo, right? I'm not going to show you all the functionality and spoil the fun, but the idea is we walk through the job applications, we kind of got a sense of how to scroll through how to review a job application, take them through the various steps. There are different things that allow you to, you know, toggle between job applications and prospects. In this case, there were no prospects, but imagine you had, so then you could also go and say, hey, who are the people who are referred? And these people haven't really applied. You can follow up with them. You can send them a reminder email. You can ask them to apply. That's kind of how that works. And by default, we decided not to show unconfirmed job applications. I'm trying to see. But as you can see from the filter options here, right, if you want to look at the unconfirmed job applications, you can.